Ja, nå skal vi avslutte med denne dagen som var ekstremt intenst. Så vi skal prøve å avslutte litt før. Men jeg er ekstremt glad for å ha Charlotte Haug med meg her. Jeg har blitt kjent med Charlotte det siste året, og det synes jeg har vært en fantastisk Charlotte. Men jeg har kjent til deg lenge. Og første gang jeg så Charlotte, det var debatt på TV i 2009, hvor hun satt ved siden av noen av de som hadde lest de 3 systematiske gjennomgåelser av influensavaksinen. Og de hadde sett at ja, men det er ikke noe klinisk reell effekt. Så de hadde skrevet da i Dagbladet og fått 100 000 kroner for å få 2 sider midt i Dagbladet. Og det førte dem inn i debatt på TV. Og da var Charlotte Haug der. Og de fikk en forferdelig behandling av NRK. Og jeg kommer aldri til å glemme det, for at Charlotte sto der og sa, nei, nå må dere ta dere sammen. Og jeg synes det var, men det som gjorde meg enda mer imponert, det var når hun skrev i 2012 en liten kronikk, er det kronikk? Lederartikkel som leder for vårt tidsskrift om hva visste vi og hva vet vi nå. Hvor hun da kritisk hadde gått gjennom etter det, for da var det 1 år, det var 3 år holdt hemmelig. Når det kom ut, så tok da Charlotte og leste gjennom 51 dokumenter, og så skriver hun da at nå har jeg lest gjennom 51 dokumenter. Nå var det 43 som hadde fått narkolepsi, jeg husker, du vet det bedre. Men det var et problem med deklarasjon av pandemi. Og jeg har fulgt med det, og jeg synes det er veldig hyggelig. Hun er altså da både forsker på Stanford, er knyttet til Sintef Digital, men hun er også the international correspondent for the New England Journal of Medicine. Now I was speaking, sorry, Norwegian, but so I was just introducing Charlotte, saying that, you know, she's been the chief editor of our journal, and she's been really outspoken, also a bit courageously, while she was the chief editor. But she's remaining as an international correspondent of the New England Journal of Medicine. And she also represents them internationally. So thank you, Charlotte. It's really great of you to now come and lead this debate. And I leave that floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It has been a very long day. I think we're all very happy that it happened. But I also think that one of the nice things is that we're hearing a lot of different perspectives. And it's not like I agree with everything that's being said. And it's quite all right. Science is to disagree. And the only problem I see with this conference really is that each of the talks should have had one day, you know, like because each of these, everybody has gone over time. And it's a reason, because you have had very much to say, and you have wanted to say a lot. And maybe we should have had more time for discussion, but it wasn't possible in this context. So I think, you know, it has been what I think we should end with today. We are not going to go on for an hour. That's not possible for my head or anybody else's head, I think. But I think we should talk a little bit about how do we realistically move forward from here. Many of you have already, you know, talked about it, but I think there are too many people who disagree, so that if we realistically are going to move forward, change, how are we going to do that? We also have to realize that there were so many things, and you have, both this morning and this afternoon, we have seen how many things we knew before the pandemic. There were many people think that something extraordinary happened now. It is in a way extraordinary. I think we all know that. It was absurd in March. It was actually absurd before March 2020, but there were many forces, and especially this morning we heard about how medical science is being produced, how doctors' roles are changing, how governments and guidelines are being produced, that it goes into all of your presentations, really. But if I will ask each of you now to just think about, you have somebody in front of you that has the total opposite viewpoint of you. What would be your suggestion to move that person a little bit forward? Not change everything, because it's a complex situation we are in. So I think I'll start with you, Astrid, since you were the last person talking.
I'm used to contradictions. Because the topics I've been dealing with, aging, anti-aging, longevity, peptide bioregulation, it was always in the forefront, and people had a hard time to accept. So it's not new to me to go in the media and have, but no, it's new to me that it's so censored that we cannot do debates. So if someone wants debate, I'm so happy. It's just like great, but and we have to be open. And it's one of the first questions I ask is, are you ready to listen to another specialty that has another expertise than you, and that you don't know what this expert knows and this expert knows what you don't know? And then it's very enriching. But in my family, if they don't accept that, I cannot discuss with them. And it's always the same thing. It's not just now. It's that it's a human attitude of being curious, want to advance. What I don't accept is people dictating to me that I'm wrong or this. No, you have to follow the argumentation. Everybody has the argumentation, and there's an ethical communication to adopt and ethical rules. No, So I have. Is that a question?
Yes, I'm just thinking that I think we all know, and maybe I should ask you, Sven, about how people change their minds, because that is very difficult to do. And now a lot of people have invested a lot in the narrative, that we have now. So how are we going to change people's minds? Yeah.
Yes, I think that we have had mass psychosis, and every person in the whole world has a sort of PTSD. And I think that we have this Danish writer and philosopher, Kierkegaard, and he says that you must meet a person where she is. And I think we ought to do that. We ought to, and we must be very humble, and we must, well, I can give an example, because we are now, with the Physicians' Appeal, we are making I think it's called a flyer in English, or we are making 3 flyers, and the first one that we will distribute in a week to all our followers, and we try to we hope that those 40,000, 50,000 persons will help us to distribute this to every citizen in Sweden. And the first one, we don't take the hard facts. We say that, did you know that the vaccines don't stop transmission, don't stop. And then we go further, because if we go out and say, oh, Klaus Schwab, he's beyond everything, they will get crazy. So I think we must meet people where they are, and we must know that they are traumatized. And I could, when I work and I meet children and families, they are always in crisis. And I have to be humble, I have to listen to them, they must feel that they are in the center and that I'm concentrated on them. So I think we have to be pedagogic, and we have to have, and if we are open-minded, we can open the door.
I would like to respond to your first question after Astrid. I tried to convince people who were opposed, but now I stopped to do that. It's really a loss of time. It's impossible to convince a strong opponent. We have to convince people who are hesitating, who are in doubt. They are much more numerous, and it's much more fruitful because they are receptive to arguments. The others are not. Maybe they will be at the end of the crisis when everything will be evident, but now they are blocked and they cannot think the right way, I think.
I was concerned, I had a little discussion because I was concerned that he overread what I wrote. Because my sentence was, meet where the person is. So have anyone seen if he cheated on my book? No, so I can only fully subscribe to the fact that meeting a person is actually an honor. Because he's genetically completely different from any other person that you can ever dream meeting in the world and that history has ever produced. So it is fantastic to meet any human being. It is a celebration, and don't miss the celebration. Therefore, be happy to whoever you encounter and meet that person where he or she is. And now, if he or she isn't happy about something, like we had the crisis on the gas recently in France, and huge lines, and people were actually fighting badly, instead of take advantage. You know, when there is a crisis, we have to take advantage of it, and therefore it's like, aren't we unhappy with our government? And then you have the link, and then if you have the link, you can elaborate. That's one thing. So the other thing is, once you want to elaborate, don't go into the subject. Go into the subject that we disagree. And for sometimes it was actually good not to go into that kind of subject, because we were just so apart that it was two separate words. And I think that it's high time we came back together. There's this window of opportunity. I don't see it lasting much. So we have to reconnect to whoever we have been disconnected because of everything that had happened.
Yeah, I just...
Go ahead.
I just want to add, actually, I thought your question was about colleagues of discussion and debate, but actually, then I think about it, in my family, I have a brother who's gynecologist. I have colleagues who are jabbing, and so when I talk to them, and I'm thinking, no judgment, don't judgment, and try and just love, just forgive and love. Of course, I have not... I lost my father, and he was jabbed 3 times, and my brother has enhanced that. He had signed no. But if you have some, he was older, but it was okay because I was ready and I was spiritually accompanying him. And I think it's very important. We live in a moment now where we have to accept that a lot of people are going to die, and we have to accompany that with a higher frequency we can. But those who have lost somebody because they have had a jab, or the partner, a child, I think it's I can understand the anger, and we have to be also careful not to judge, but we cannot convince someone there. We can only try and find peace, and I don't know how the doctors have to understand that they'll have to make coming out and say, I'm sorry, we are sorry because we did not know, and yeah. So I see there is going to be a lot of emotions in the future on that point.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm not saying that. I think many of the Norwegians here know that I also lost my father, but not to the vaccine, but to the lockdown. He was isolated. he couldn't take it. But I only tell this story because so many other people have experienced exactly the same thing. And I think, you know, that was in the beginning of the pandemic, and the feeling of him alone in nursing home, alone, dying, it was terrible. And that was when I sort of really realized, you know, where we're going at. But one thing that you said, Alexandra, that is about sort of, it's technical what you're talking about, but we do see something moving, because we have this Lancet article that was where all these previously at least respected virologists mostly went out and said that it's conspiracy if you think about something else. And now we have a Nature article. It is progress. I mean, we have to look at the progress too, or what do you think?
So we have to look at the progress and to say, you know what, this genome analysis could be done from scratch. And nothing at all has changed over the past 2 years in terms of genomic analysis. So we also have, that's when I say, and it goes back to the conversation we just had, that we also have to go into these areas that we strongly used to disagree in order that there is a common and mutual acceptance. And so we have to find, so if you want to go and to write this article that we need to write, I think every word will be really important. But I do think it is our responsibility to now, you know, utter a letter, a correspondence back to the fact that this Nature paper is out. So yes, that something is moving.
And
maybe.
I think it was a big thing with you, Christian, with the French medical association or whatever it was.
My French colleagues at the present time, they are not open at all, and they are all following the government except a few pioneers. But I think now I meet in different countries more and more awakened scientific people, physicians, and we could create together a stronger network, even an international medical and scientific association, to communicate, to publish our own articles. Why not? And to, with the name of many people with a nice CV around the world, it could have an impact. Academic.
Yeah, academic is a key word, because academic world has a lot of rules, as you all know, and they have structured us after, for sometimes it's for over 20 years, and sometimes even a little more. Yeah. A little bit more. and therefore, this academic world, because we are part of it, we need to speak up and to be reintegrated, just like Christian has been.
Yes, and I think it's really important with this academic that we meet, and yes, but I also think that if this is going to change, we also need to. It's not just the professions, that it's also the man in the street, or what do you call it. You could make a parallel to the war in Vietnam. It wasn't the demonstrations that changed it, and in the demonstrations, it was us, we that knew the problems. It was when 68,000 American young men had died, and it was so many in the States that it was parents, it was siblings, it was well, friends. So I think it's also important to talk about the vaccinated and the adverse events and deaths and those things, and we must. We need. This is not going to change. It's not the French Revolution. It was not the what do you call Aden, the privileged people, they didn't give away their power. It must come from the ground also.
Yeah, I don't have a good experience with the Faculty of Medicine and publications, because they keep on saying impact factor, and in fact there are 10 or to 20 who have not done the research on the paper, and they claim to be professor because they have impact factor. So there is a corruption in publication and scientific publication that's absolutely horrible, and we have to stop that. We cannot stop again with the same. Really, so first the whole way. For example, if your New England Journal wants to really change and convince that we are going to do a science that is ethic and is not corrupted in the whole procedure of nomination of professor at the faculty, many cases, or the CVs or the publications, we have to make another journal type, a new philosophy. You have to change, reshape it, and convince the new world that is going on, and it has to fall. For me, it is normal. Things have to fall down. There's too much. It's been going on for too long, especially against women in the faculties of academy. So I think that there's time to make a real difference and not name it the same. Richard Horton, who was in The Lancet, he was always in WHO. He's the head of, editor-in-chief of The Lancet. I cannot believe anymore in journals, scientific journals. So we have to create another one. Simplissima.
I think all this system of publication is going very badly for decades before the COVID crisis, because now, as Astrid says, all the careers, all the funding of labs are based on the number of publications with high-ranked journals during the year. In France, it's going like that now, but before it was not the case, because, for example, a researcher at INSERM, the equivalent of NIH, he has a salary. He's also a civil servant, and he can have a grant for a research project, but if he has not the grant, he can eat and protects his children and pays his house. In the United States, we arrive in September. The guy say, "Oh, I lack 10 papers in the good journals, otherwise my lab will be closed in December." But it's publicly written by researchers. People do research about the fraud in journal, and you can see the same paper cut in 5 with copies of what has been said already and completely invented data. And it's very, very frequent. We only catch a tip of the iceberg, but in fact, many, many papers are modified and sometimes fraudulent. And what I don't accept with the editor-in-chief, because Ryan told about the former editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine. She attacked in the New York Times her own journal, but she had the courage to resign, to say, I don't accept that anymore. But Richard Horton, the editor-in-chief of The Lancet, he wrote in 2015, I think, this pamphlet against his own journal. So I thought he went away. I didn't follow his career, but when the COVID crisis arrived, I said, "Oh, Richard Horton, it's the same. What is he doing there?" And after that, you can see fraudulent papers published in The Lancet. So that's not normal. This guy should have resigned for a long time.
I think I'm probably not the right person to sort of comment a lot.
No, I think that I'm a very pragmatic one, and I speak of things that I know I can have a hand on to change. Those things that seems too much to me, I just leave it to Astrid. She will fight.
But I will say something, though, even if I'm sort of totally invested in the system of publications. We have also been working, I started the Committee of Publication Ethics. So we're working on it there too. And I do think that is not that there's so many wrong things with the way the publications are going. We have to find a way, but it's it's a part of the problem. It's the part of the financing of the research and the universities deciding to use these numbers for the careers. It's maybe a little bit internal, this debate. I mean, but what I think is that we have the conflict of interest. The financial conflict of interest is the most important thing to look at. And I don't know. You haven't been talking so much about that in the Läkaroppropet with the financial conflicts of interests behind this.
What did you say
No.
now?
No, I'm just saying that we can talk about, you know, what's wrong with publications or what's wrong with, you know, healthcare systems, but it's really the financial conflicts of interest that we have to look at. And are you doing that in your Läkaroppropet? Are you looking at the financial conflicts of interest?
No, it's not an issue that we are. We have written and talked about it, yes, and as we have talked here, 75% of our medical agency, the medical, is financed from the industry, and the Swedes doesn't know anything about that. They think that it's an authority agency that is objective, totally objective, but this is, in my opinion, it's not an authority at all, because you shouldn't be financed at all.
It's the same thing all over. I'd like to ask Christian, because, yeah.
I have two comments about conflicts of interest and to be present in an official commission. For example, the United States, they were the only country like that before, but now we are joining them. If it was authorized by law in the United States to have huge conflicts of interest and to give advices in all the commissions. You had just to declare them. But if you declare them, there was no problem. You could attack the concurrent product or make the advertising of your own product. It's legal. In the United States, sometimes it's much more dangerous to lie than to kill somebody. That's the best crime there. Now, for a more general point of view, there are many French physicians, scientists in the international lab companies, including at very high positions in the United States and at the international level. I know very well several friends who are good persons who had a very high position in pharmaceutical companies, and they all told me, oh, when your colleagues declare, it was the same thing for HIV before COVID, your colleagues declare on Transparence Santé, you know, the official site for transparency, 10,000 euros from lab X and 100,000 euros for another lab. He told me, you know, that is a tip, because we give them millions of euros or dollars on offshore accounts. Of course, I won't give names, but we know that it exists. And when I spoke about that with one day with a representative of the Council of Physicians in France, he told me, yes, we know about that, we have heard about that, but nobody acts against that.
I just want to mention something that I encountered called the DORA Declaration, San Francisco DORA Declaration, which exactly addresses what you said, and they start to think about how the new scientific journal should be without having impact factor, but look at the quality of what's written and not the authors and not the conflict of interest. So there is a movement since 10 years in California and everywhere, yeah.
Bioarchive is one of these initiatives, and I had discussed with the guys who did that early on. So there is this trend of, you know, making the flow more flexible into the publication and having anyone who wants to pass a judgment on the paper to openly discuss it and, you know, to add the comments. But I'm not naive, and I don't think that kind of things will change much. And that's what
And I can answer your question again, because we have Läkaroppropet, the physicians appeal, we have published some of the articles that media or wouldn't publish. We have published some of them, and we have thought maybe we will expand, and we could publish more things. We have 2 articles that have been published in medicine papers. One July 2021 in Dagens Medicin, and it was about ivermectin. Yes, and in September in Läkartidningen, the physician's paper, you could call it. And it was that we thought that we should not vaccinate children from 12 to 15 years. And, well, they did, but they didn't go beneath 12. And I think that our article had some impact, yes. But that's the only 2 articles that have been accepted.
Yeah, I think we should probably think about sort of when publication of science is quite a complicated thing, and it's and one of the problems we have right now is that there's too much published too. I mean, so one thing in one extreme you have the very selective and maybe very conflicted journals. On the other side, you have a lot of things going on in many journals that have an economic incentive to publish many papers. So we should not really be discussing that too much here. It's a big issue. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but I have a suggestion that just comes to me now, is that given this situation, research is not possible almost ethically. But what is interesting to do is to make participative articles. And there are lots of case studies of people who are vaccinated or have shedding. And I'm on Telegram groups where I say, oh, I could do it. That would be really interesting to publish. And I think the participation of people is very important in the future. It's not just about doctors, scientists, it's about you all. And we should have also lawyers and have a multidisciplinary team. In public health, it should be like that. But the impact factor is so low. Impact factor is actually a factor of publication, of how much you sell. It's not even a quality impact. But really that everybody can say, okay, I have a case study, or there are groups of patients who write, and they have an expertise of what they're living that is essential for the future of medicine.
Okay, it's been a very long day. I would like to give each of you 2 minutes to just sort of, what do you want to say? I'm not asking you to sum up the day or anything, because I think none of us can do that, but just a little statement to the group here.
Well, I think we have talked about now the future, and I think we need a new paradigm. And I think that this is not something that has evolved now, these last 3 years. It began 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 1968, I think, Ryan Coe said, or something. We need a new paradigm, much broader, and we need to talk about health care and how you don't get sick. And I think also this thing that they do in Norway, this Hälsoarbeideres Fellesforbund, I think something like that probably we must also invent, yes, because we can't change those. We have to do something new, a new paradigm, yes.
If I am to summarize somewhat the take-home message, at least of this day, I hope that the initiative from Barbro will move forward, and we have to help her all together if there is something that we can do at our level, because I believe in the domino effect of the Scandinavian countries on the world, at least in Europe. So we have to move that forward, and I'm very glad that this conference took place here in Norway. The second thing is this injury thing of the vaccine. You said that you could easily treat whatever injuries. Yeah, well, with glutathione and stuff, this is not quite what I receive as an experience, and that's why we need to get together to see what works for whom, because, you know, that things don't work for everyone, and that's why I really want to put an energy into focusing onto the injured one, because we need them, and we need to discuss with them, and it's difficult because at the time that someone that is dying from a vaccine, and you know it's from the vaccine, but they don't know because they don't relate it. I don't feel like taking my mirror and say, but this was about the vaccine. I just like, it's too much. So this is the kind of place I don't want to go. So that's the thing that I really am hopeful from today. One, Norwegian initiative behind Barbro. Second, yes. Second, have, you know, to think something, some cure, so that we do not face any death. I don't want any more excess mortality. I don't want, so we will make it not happen. Maybe it is planned to happen, but I don't care what they plan. I just will fight to my death until I die for the fact that it doesn't take place. And I think this is important. And at the individual level, to remind us all that we have the right to say no. And that even in a jail, even we can say no, this, you are reaching a way that I don't want, you don't approach me.
Yes, I completely agree. Gandhi, he was half nude with a small sari. He had no to the British Empire, and he won. I think now we could see today there is a lot of information, including scientific articles published in recognized medical journals. And if you ask, you see that the so-called fact-checkers in many mainstream media say there is not a single article saying that vaccines are not good, there is not a single, and so on. So now it's not, we are still in war, as said our President Macron, but not in war against a virus. We are in a mediatic war, and we have to continue to make all this scientific information available to the general public. That's why they are really in panic. When I was invited to speak, to give a lecture at the European Parliament in Strasbourg, during the afternoon, just to wait for my conference, I attended a meeting. There were 50 people for the Parliament. The subject of the discussion, there were also American people by video conference during the meeting. It's urgent to increase censorship in all the media to protect our freedom, to protect our democracies within the European Parliament. It's a shame. So because they see that they are losing their plot, because the information is coming out under the carpet. And if we continue like that, and all the people in the world say we don't want censorship, because that's their next step, it's to censor everything. Maybe we will cut internet to stop their so-called misinformation. I'm sure, I'm optimistic, we will win, because every week there is a new scandal coming out. They try to hide them, but now truth is coming out, so we have to remain optimistic and to say no and to inform the others.
Yeah, well, I think that those past years have been maybe the most important for the change of the inner life and outer life. And I often think whatever happens, we have to learn to live more simply and to stop this quality of life, of exterior life, because finally we don't need much to be happy. And the happiness is not about outside richness, really, but it's about putting your criteria at another level. And this is helping us because our government are not governments anymore. They're behaving really like, dictators and tyranny. So whatever can happen in the future, I'm always thinking, okay, so I have to change my brain, rewire the programmation that I have been having, and we all have to do this.
Astrid, may I interrupt?
No.
See, please.
I can say no.
About, you know that the one plan is they will own nothing and they will be happy. So,
yeah. No, but I will
is
own
that
myself.
the plan?
No. Okay, that was a good joke. But no, but you own yourself, and that's the most important. You own yourself.
Thank you. I think we could have been sitting here for a long time discussing, and it has been a lot of information today, a lot to discuss. It's been very interesting, and I wish we had had more time to discuss, all the different topics that we have been bringing up. I think we all need time to digest it, even if we have been thinking about it quite a lot over the last 2.5 years. So I also want to take this opportunity to thank the organizers. I know it's been a big effort. And I also want to thank the audience here, because these have been very special 2.5 years. And it's been difficult in many ways to sort of say something in the public, but it's been very rewarding to have people actually being curious, wanting to listen, sending messages, even if I haven't had time to answer. And at least for me, it has been very important. So I want to thank all of you who have been active, even if I never answered your emails. But thank you, Torkel. I think you want to say some words.
Yeah, maybe all the speakers who come up here also.
All the speakers, including Annette, Monica.
We have to always look at some good things. I will be a doctor for 40 years in February. And we are different ages, but I was trying to remember, because we took the Hippocratic Oath, and we stood there, and I've been searching to try to find that Hippocratic Oath in Norwegian, and I couldn't find it. But what I do remember is that after we took the Hippocratic Oath, we were invited by the pharmaceutical industry to a beautiful dinner. In the journey of my journey as a medical doctor, the most important was when I read the Flexner report from 1913. The book is called Rockefeller Medicine Men. Remember that book, The Rockefeller Medicine Men. When I read that book, it was published in the 1970s, I realized that from then on, it went the wrong way. Because we as medical doctors got this enormous authority that we did not deserve. And the other practitioners suddenly know, if we are 5 people sitting around the table and there's 1 doctor and there's 5 acupuncture practitioners, everyone looks at the doctor. Well, I spent 15 years in China, and they were doing traditional Chinese medicine, and there even though there's crazy there now, they respected each other and sat around the table, and they were doing alternative medicine. So I think this is the opportunity to come back to something that we left so many years ago. And another thing is that there is a cry for not breaking the system, but obvious it's broken. And Asim, who's here, No, he's coming. He showed this book, you know, where the corporation, which is not a human, it's a legal entity that is supposed to make money. And it's completely disconnected to humanity. And that has to be broken. And I can just give you a little hint that many of us now have already discussed, we are starting to build a European alliance in the WHO region. That's 53 countries, 881 million people. Now, where is the energy in there? It is between the practitioner and the receiver of that care. And it's not about medical doctors, it's about all who are helping patients or health consumers. We have to break this, I think. And we as medical doctors need to understand we have to respect each other. And we are not, because I set up a clinic with acupuncture doctors as an ophthalmologist, and I cannot get my colleagues to be interested in what they're doing. We have to break this. That's only one part of it. So anyways, we'll stop it. Thank you very much, all of you. It's great.
Come on, all of you.
Yeah, so thank you all. And before we close, I just want, can we please give a fantastic applause to Annette, who has done this fantastic work behind. So Annette, we love you.
Can we do?
Yeah.
Can we do what I did? It's a human chain, and the human chain will change the world.
I was also told that there's going to be a protest, a silent protest, starting outside here at 6 p.m. for anyone that would like to join that, for the vaccine injured. So there is a group doing that in case anyone wants to join.
Thank you.
you.
Be strong.